In this Diablo 4 video, I'm going to be showing you our Ice Sorceress build. This is a level 50 plus build of the Sorceress class that focuses on frost and ice spells and is made and intended for tiers 3 of the game for Nightmare Dungeons, Whispers, and Helltide objectives. If you're looking for a good Frozen Orb sorc build or you want to delve into chill and freeze effects, then this build will suit you perfectly. This build is best suited for when you've reached level 50 and are ready to spend some time farming for your specific equipment. You can get here from our previous ice build, but some items and legendaries may not be easily available early on. This build has decent survivability, but will require that you pay attention to where you're standing. The highlight of this build is its incredible crowd control and AoE DPS, achieved by maximizing the use of all freeze skills and further boosting it with gear and the Paragon system. You'll have 2 Frozen Nova casts at your disposal while also enjoying frequent ice armor, powerful dual cast of Frozen Orb, and an ultimate every 60 seconds or less that gives you damage immunity, while you can heal and deal AoE damage to the entire screen. Your main gameplay rotation will be to cast Blizzard to start an encounter and then drop Frozen Orb in the enemy's direction. Position yourself wisely so enemies can be rounded up and cast Frost Nova, then spam Frozen Orb some more. If there are elites in the group, you can still freeze them with your skills, so you only need to use your ultimate ability if you feel you need a little extra boost or are running low on resources or health. This Sorceress build has passive stacking bonuses such as more damage to freezing or chilled enemies, but it's important to keep in mind bosses can be staggered by filling out their posture meter under their health bar. After that, they count as under the effects of your freeze, so you'll deal plus 60% or more damage to them during this time. Easy enough to kill them quickly then. This build's crowd control DPS combo is achieved by the smart use of enchantments. We will use Ice Shards as an enchantment, so that will automatically cast and target frozen enemies. To double down on our AoE capabilities, we'll assign Frozen Orb as the second enchantment, giving all our non-basic skills a 20% chance to cast Frozen Orb when used. The key synergies that make a difference for your survivability and rotation come from passives. Elemental Attunement provides a 15% chance to reset your Frost Nova and Ice Barrier, which is invaluable in battle as they will freeze enemies around you, keep you alive, and let you do more damage. Align the Elements gives you up to 40% less damage from elites, and Mana Shield gives you 10% damage reduction for every 100 mana you spend. Protection makes it so that when you use a skill that has a cooldown, you grant yourself 20% of your life as a barrier, so your Frost Nova and Ice Armor give you an extra shield, and Snap Freeze gives you a 9% chance to instantly freeze enemies on lucky hit. Cold Front gives you 20% more chill applied when you have a barrier active, and Wizard's Blizzard makes it so that your skills cost 10% less mana when Blizzard is active. Permafrost makes it so that Frost skills deal 15% more increased damage to elites, and Hoarfrost makes it so that you deal 9% more damage to chilled enemies and 18% more damage to frozen enemies. And lastly, Avalanche makes it so that on lucky hit, your Frost skills have up to a 10% chance to make your next cast of Frozen Orb or Blizzard consume no mana and deal 40% increased damage. The interconnection of these passives and gear we selected gives you fantastic DPS, which will get you going through dungeons and Helltides easy and fast. Equipment is a crucial part for any level 50 plus build, as this is where the actual itemization begins to take shape in the game. For this build, we'll be looking to get gear with specific bonuses to our main damage dealer skills, but also want to focus on boosting Frost skill damage, chilled and frozen damage, all damage, and crowd control duration. You should also look to increase your stats with plus stats bonuses on gear for willpower, intelligence, and dexterity. I've kept damage type resistances buffs on armors as it can be troublesome to deal with elemental packs. With this setup, we have about 45% against all damage types, and we can increase this with our in-combat skills and by obtaining additional buffs from elixirs. Jewelry bonuses you want to look out for are a +1 rank to all defensive skills, critical strike chance, critical strike damage, and lucky hit chance. You can also find Frost skill damage and damage to frozen or chilled enemies to further boost your base DPS for this build. Legendary aspects you want to use are Frost Blitz aspect. This makes Frost Nova gain an additional charge, but the cooldown per charge is increased by 30 to 40%. Aspect of Control. This increases your damage to immobilized, stunned, or frozen enemies, and you want to use this on your staff if possible, as this will increase the amount of damage you get by double. Aspect of Intercom. This increases your damage for each second you stand still, which you tend to do a lot with this build. Aspect of Frozen Orbit. Frozen Orb stays in place after reaching its destination and explodes additional times for 30 to 45% of its damage. Aspect of the Umbral restores resources when you crowd control an enemy, and since chilled and frozen are both considered crowd control, this should be often. Protecting aspect. When hit while not healthy, a magic bubble is summoned around you, which makes you immune to damage effects and crowd control. Aspect of the Protector, which makes it so damaging an elite provides you with a barrier for 10 seconds, which can happen once every 30 seconds. Aspect of Fortune, your lucky hit chance is increased while you have a barrier active. And Mother's Embrace. This is a unique ring that makes it so that when you cast a core skill, if it hits 5 or more enemies, you refund a percentage of the resource cost. A very important and easily neglected aspect of equipment is enchant and upgrade options. By this point in the game, you should have sufficient materials to upgrade your equipment 3 times or so. This actually does make a difference, so make sure you do it, but I would advise not doing more than about 3 times at this point, just to save resources. For enchanting, you may find the cost could be high, but you'll be able to do Helltides to obtain materials. Being able to remove an unwanted bonus and sliding one that's good can be very impactful to your overall build. I recommend at least trying to do this once on each piece of equipment that you find you need to replace something on, but not more than that at this point in the game. Gems are also a very important part of builds, and as you create slots in equipment, you can swap them in and out as necessary. To improve survivability, I focused on rubies for max life and armor, diamonds on jewelry for elemental resistances, and topaz on weapon for basic skill damage. Moving along to the Paragon system, and as you level Paragon, you want to put points into willpower and intelligence to gain resource regeneration as well as damage, and you want to take the Tactician glyph in your slot as it's one of the most balanced for DPS and resistances. You'll need to assign 25 points of dexterity around it, and once you do this, you'll get a very nice boost to the rare nodes higher in your tree that boost your non-physical damage by 16%, so all your damage. Additionally, this glyph gives you 10% increased damage for 4 seconds after casting a defensive skill, so you'll be able to maximize the use of your ice armor. If you're struggling with mana consumption, there's a glyph called Unleash that increases your damage and mana regeneration for 3 seconds every 50 mana you spend, so roughly 1 frozen orb. It can be useful, but the DPS boost is not as significant as other glyphs. Final tips. This build can be extremely fun to play and can quickly complete nightmare dungeons, but your main weakness is mana consumption. You can make adjustments to your gear to include more mana cost reduction and regen on Paragon points. When facing dungeon bosses, you will find you begin them very slowly, but as soon as they are staggered, they count as frozen and you will deal massive extra damage to them, allowing you to finish them off in seconds. Make sure to have enough mana when this is happening and anticipate it so that you can blow them apart quickly. And lastly, pairing up with other players that also use frozen and chilled effects can be extremely useful, as you guys can stack chilled and frozen on enemies together, and usually other builds that have this as well have increased damage against these damage types, making for a very good combination between you or more players. So that wraps up our Permafrost build. We have another Barbarian build coming tomorrow and possibly another Rogue build. We are starting to slow down on the 50 side of things, as there are not too many builds left at this part of the game, and we should be moving on to level 70 plus builds probably after the weekend. If there are other guides you guys want to see or other questions you guys have about the game, please leave them in the comments below and we will try and get to them as soon as we can.